Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. This is Matt with Coyote Creek Archery. In this video, I want to talk to you about speed. Speed gets brought up a lot in different conversations in some of the videos that I've posted on this channel doing bow reviews, talking about my traditional bows even. People ask about speed quite a bit, and that's something that I see a lot of and hear a lot about. And I think that speed is important in archery, but I don't think that it's everything. Obviously, I think that accuracy should take priority over everything else. Speed should be a part of the equation because the quicker that arrow gets to the animal, the less of a chance that animal has to react. Speed is going to give you a little bit more energy and those types of things, but there's a lot of things that go into the equation besides just having speed. You want to have adequate arrow weight so that you have the momentum to penetrate your target. You also want to make sure that you have a good broadhead that's going to do the job, and you want to make sure that you put the shot in the right place. And so accuracy is a big part of that. But there's all these things that tie together, and when I'm trying to build a setup for myself, I'm looking at trying to find that balance between having enough speed, having enough arrow weight, and being able to have a setup that shoots accurately with the broadheads that I like to use. And so I'm looking at making some changes this year to my setup. Last fall, for my hunting setup, I've been shooting a Bowtech solution. I really enjoy the bow, but I was shooting it on comfort, 28-inch draw, 60 pounds, and I was shooting these arrows here. This is a gold tip Kinetic Chaos. It's a 340 spine with 125 grain points, and I'm about total arrow weight of about 495 grains, which is not a super heavy setup, but it's probably a little bit heavier than what most people are shooting, especially for a whitetail hunter or someone like that, and especially for someone I think that has a 28-inch draw, 60 pounds. It's I'm not able to pull a 30-inch bow and 70 pounds and generate a lot more energy that way. So I'm a little bit at a disadvantage as far as that goes. So one thing that I've done is, with my bow, I have the ability with the Bowtech solution, the ability to flip my mods. So with the flip disc modules, I've switched from comfort over to performance, and I was really surprised. The draw cycle was really very nice at performance. There's not a big difference. And so if you are shooting a Bowtech, you might want to look at that as a way to gain some speed. I think probably at my draw length being a 28-inch draw length, I've shot them also at shorter draw lengths and right around in that ballpark, and I don't notice a big difference as far as the draw cycle. I think maybe if you're a little bit longer, if you're up around 30 inches or something like that, you might notice a little bit more of an aggressive draw cycle. But if you're in that 27, maybe even a little bit less, the 29-inch draw length, flip over your mods and see what you get, and see, you might be surprised that the draw cycle is really pretty comfortable. So I think I'm going to stick with the performance setting on my bow. I'm going to show you here what that looks like. So if you watch this video, I'll show you what the draw cycle looks like. I talk a little bit about that, and then we'll get back to my arrow setup. Okay, I'm going to take a few shots here with my Bowtech solution. I have the mods now flipped over to the performance side, and I've really been impressed with the draw cycle, but I want to show you what that looks like, especially at the back end. I really don't notice much of anything at the beginning of the draw cycle, but towards the back end you will see a little bit of a difference there. But it really is pretty pleasant. I'm going to leave it in performance. I like the feel in performance. Okay, so just right there, it's very small, but again, the valley is shorter, so you do got to make sure that you are pulling through the shot, and that's another thing I like about it as well. I feel like I have a little bit less let off on the back end, so I do have to pull through the shot, but really the drop into that valley is very minimal. It's really nothing aggressive at all. So if you're shooting a solution, I would recommend flipping it over performance and just see what you think about that, because it does make a big difference on, or it does make some difference on the amount of speed that you're going to get. So I'll show you that again here. Okay, just right there, and it's nothing much at all. Okay, just something I wanted to show you because it's something that I haven't talked about yet. Okay, so as I said, I've been shooting a 495 grain gold tip Kinetic Chaos. It's a 340 spine. I do have nocturnals on the back end. I really like those. Not so much as seeing the arrow in flight, but finding the arrow after it's went through the animal. Sometimes they'll bury in the grass, or just makes them a lot easier to find these arrows because, as you know, arrows are not cheap. So I do like the nocturnals on the back end, and 125 grains up front is something that I prefer. Gives me just a little bit more front of center, and I feel like 125 grain broadheads just are built a little bit more durable and have a little bit more meat into them. So I've been shooting 125 grain for quite some time. But what I'm looking at doing, because I did some testing with my setup, again, 28 inches, 60 pounds, I was on comfort setting and 495 grain arrow. I was getting about 242 feet per second is all. So kind of a slow setup. It worked well for me this last year. I didn't have to take any long shots on deer. I was pretty close. I do a lot of hunting on the ground. And I was able to take a pretty close shot on the deer that I harvested this last year. So speed wasn't a big issue on that, but I'm looking to gain some speed for this next year in my setup. And so I started just tinkering around with a 410 grain arrow and trying to see what type of speeds I would get out of that. Jumping from comfort setting up to performance setting, I gained about 10 feet per second. So I went from 242 up to about 252. Using the same bow, same arrows, just flipping the mods, I gained about 10 feet per second. Going up to the 410 grain arrow on performance, I jumped clear up to 470 feet per second. So I gained almost 30 feet per second by going to a 410 grain arrow. I don't think that's too light. I'm thinking of maybe looking for something just a little bit heavier, 420 to 430 grains, probably somewhere in that ballpark. It's going to put me in the 260 feet per second range, and which is something that I'm kind of looking at. I've got these gold tip black label Quantums. It's still a micro diameter arrow, just like the Kinetic Chaos. So it's going to be a .204 on the inside diameter, which I really like. And looking at, I'm gonna make up a dozen of these Quantums and see how they shoot for me. I may post another video later on and just kind of show you some of the difference, because one of the main things that I'm looking for is a little bit flatter trajectory. I don't hunt out to 50, 60 yards, even beyond that, but I like to shoot out that far. And I was noticing with my heavier arrows versus the lighter arrow, when I was shooting a 495 grain arrow versus a 410 grain arrow at the same target at 50 yards, I was about 12 to 14 inches. That arrow was lower. That heavier arrow was about 12 to 14 inches lower, which is pretty significant. At 50 yards, that arrow is dropping almost over a foot. That makes a big difference. And if you're looking at gaining 30 feet per second, that's 10 yards that arrow is going to get there within a second. And obviously, your shot's going to be quicker than that. But it is going to get to the animal quicker. The animal will have a little bit less time to react. I think, I don't think I'll have any issues with penetration and those types of things. So I'm looking at going with a little bit lighter arrow setup. I think my front of center will be good using the 125 grains and using a little bit lighter arrow shaft. The Kinetic Chaos, let's see, is 9.9 grains per inch, and the Quantum is 7.7. So 2.2 grains per inch. Even at a 30-inch arrow, I'm going to lose 2 grains. I'm going to lose about 60 grains off of that. So which that's going to put me right into that 430 grains ballpark, somewhere in there. So just something that I've been thinking about and considering and doing. Now is a good time to do that. It's just now into spring, and it's a good time to kind of tinker with some of those things and play around and see what's going to work best for me. If I don't like the lighter arrows, I can still hunt with them. I can turkey hunt and do some things like that with them, and I can use the heavier arrows for a little bit larger animals. But I don't think either one of them is going to be a problem for me. Just something I wanted to try out and talk to you a little bit about. So what do you like to use is something I'd like to know as well. What are you using? Are you on the heavier end, or maybe you're on the lighter end and looking for speed? Obviously, when you're trying to find a speed setup, it makes tuning a little bit more difficult. It creates a little bit more noise. A heavier arrow is going to be quieter, and it is going to tend to tune a little bit better. But I think if you have your bow set up well and your bow is tuned correctly, your arrow flight with broadheads shouldn't be a big issue. And so anyway, that's what I'm looking for here, is just trying to find something that's a little bit more in the middle and gives me just a little bit more speed in my setup and shooting a little bit flatter trajectory. So anyways, let me know in the comments below what you think. What do you prefer? And I'd be kind of curious to see what everyone else is out there shooting as well. So anyway, stay tuned. I will post some more on this as a follow-up as I get these arrows built and do some shooting with them. I'll let you know how things have worked out for me and what I've decided on. So anyways, that's all I've got for today. I appreciate you watching.